There is a moment, often silent, often unannounced, when the soul begins to whisper a sacred truth the mind has long avoided. You cannot move forward holding on. And in that whisper is a thunder louder than any storm, for it is the voice of awakening calling you back to the freedom of your own becoming. You see, life does not wait for us to be ready. It flows like a river, unconcerned with the rocks we clutch along its shore. And yet, how many of us grasp tightly to the stones of yesterday, old grievances, worn identities, familiar pain, believing that somehow, by holding tighter, we will find safety. But safety is not found in the past. It is discovered only in the now, when you let go of what no longer serves your becoming. We are conditioned to carry memories like armor, carry blame like a badge, carry regret like it defines us. But the soul was not born to carry, it was born to soar. And nothing weighs heavier than what is no longer meant for us. The ancient sages, the mystics, the lovers of truth have all spoken this in unison. The only way out is in, and the only way forward is through the fire of letting go, through the sacred death of who you thought you were, through the surrender of your need to control what was never yours to hold. You cannot move forward while dragging the chains of yesterday. You cannot receive tomorrow with hands clenched in the past. And yet we try. We try to run while rooted in pain. We try to love while guarded by fear. We try to create while bound by the opinions of others. But trying is not living, it is rehearsing. It is survival, not presence. And you were not born to rehearse your life, you were born to live it boldly, softly, authentically. Imagine the tree in autumn. It does not negotiate with its leaves. It does not fear their falling. It does not cling to what once brought it color. It lets go because it trusts. It trusts the cycle. It trusts the shedding. It trusts that in the bareness of winter, its essence is not lost. It is simply preparing for deeper roots, for greater growth, for the miracle of spring. So must we trust. For to hold on is to halt the soul's movement. And stagnation is not safety, it is suffering disguised as familiarity. Do not mistake pain for proof of love. Do not confuse attachment with loyalty. What was meant to be a chapter was never meant to become your identity. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in response. And when you choose to let go, you are not discarding the past, you are honoring it by refusing to let it define your future. The ego will scream that letting go is weakness, but the soul knows it is the greatest strength. For to release is not to abandon, it is to trust. To trust that what is meant for you cannot be lost, and what is lost was never truly yours. To trust that the space you clear by surrender becomes the sacred soil for miracles to take root. Let go of the resentment that burns your spirit from within. Let go of the illusion that someone else holds the key to your worth. Let go of the story that you are broken, unworthy, too late. You are not. You are not late, you are ripe. You are not broken, you are breaking open. You are not too much, you are finally becoming enough for yourself. You cannot move forward holding on, not to the one who walked away, not to the version of yourself that played small, not to the belief that love must be earned. You are already loved. You are already whole. You are already divine, not because you have achieved something, but because you exist, because the breath in your lungs is the whisper of God saying, you belong. And when you let go, truly let go, not in anger, not in avoidance, but in love, you make space. Space for peace to return, space for joy to find you, space for the life you've been resisting to finally embrace you. The great mystics have all taught this. You cannot fill a cup that is already full. And your soul, my dear, is overflowing with what is no longer you. Pour it out, cry it out, breathe it out, write it out, release, not because the past was wrong, but because the future is ready. You are not here to repeat the old story. You are here to write a new one written not in the ink of fear, but in the light of truth. And the truth is, the more you let go, the more you rise. Like a balloon shedding its sandbags, your spirit ascends when it is no longer anchored to what was. Let go of needing to be understood. Let go of needing closure. Let go of the apology that never came. Forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because your peace matters more than your pride. Because your freedom matters more than your certainty. There is no virtue in clinging. There is only delay. Delay of your joy, delay of your healing, delay of the destiny that awaits you the moment you choose to be free. And yes, it will be painful, letting go always island. because it is a death. The death of illusions, the death of roles, the death of control. But every death births a new life. And your new life is not waiting at the end of some distant road. It is waiting in the space you clear when you finally release. You are not what you've lost. You are not the weight you carry. You are the light that remains when all else falls away. And you are never alone in this letting go. The divine walks with you, not in front, not behind, but within, whispering always, trust me, there is more. So breathe, dear soul. Breathe into the empty spaces. Breathe into the grief, the uncertainty, the trembling, and let those breaths become your prayer, your offering, your surrender. You cannot move forward holding on. But when you let go, oh, how you fly. And so you stand now at the threshold, not of some distant destiny, but of the sacred now that invites you inward. The past does not ask for your attention anymore, and the future has no power here. What remains is this quiet, trembling moment, a portal to everything you have been aching to become. But only if you are willing to step through without the baggage you have so long mistaken for identity. Let yourself grieve what you thought you needed. Let the tears come, not as signs of weakness, but as evidence of your soul shedding the last remnants of its disguise. For tears do not drown us, they cleanse us. They carve out new space in the heart for truth to enter, and truth is never loud. It does not shout over your fears. It waits patiently in the silence beyond them. You have tried to negotiate with pain. You have tried to make peace with confusion. But there comes a moment when the only act of courage left is to walk away from the conversation entirely, to step out of the maze of why and what if, and to trust that not every wound needs to be explained. Some only need to be felt and finally released. Release is not forgetting. It is remembering yourself beyond the memory, beyond the version of you that begged, that settled, that wore masks to feel loved. Those were costumes, not the skin of your soul. And what a beautiful relief to finally disrobe, to step unclothed into the presence of your own authenticity and know you are enough, even naked of explanation. The past will not let go of you, but you can let go of it. It will knock. It will whisper. It will tempt you with old comfort, but you are not obligated to answer. Growth is not cruel, but it is firm. It calls you to walk with it, even as your trembling hands still reach for what once felt safe. It calls you not to leap, but to release step by sacred step. You do not have to rush. This is not a race. There is no finish line. The soul does not hurry. It unfolds. And with every letting go, another petal opens, another light breaks through, another shadow disappears, not because it was defeated, but because you stopped feeding it with your attention. Letting go is the most sacred form of trust. Trusting that there is life on the other side of the loss, trusting that there is clarity on the other side of confusion, trusting that in letting the old identity die, you are not disappearing, you are revealing, you are not becoming less, you are uncovering more. We carry so much that was never ours, expectations handed to us before we had a voice, judgments inherited from generations that never questioned their pain, roles we were cast into without audition. And we carry them because we believe that to be loved, we must perform. But love does not demand performance. It asks only for presence. And presence requires one thing: release. Release your need to be right. Release your need to be seen in a certain way. Release the belief that you must earn your place on this earth. You were born with that place. You are that place. A living, breathing temple of consciousness. What more could you need to deserve your own freedom? When you let go, life responds. Not always instantly, not always visibly, but it shifts because your energy changes. You stop sending out the frequency of desperation and begin to radiate the vibration of truth. And truth is magnetic. It draws to you not what your ego wants, but what your soul has long been ready to receive. You cannot hold both the old and the new. Your hands, like your heart, must be empty to receive. So many cling to the rubble of what has fallen, not realizing that the clearing is the miracle. The collapse is not punishment, it is preparation. The closing door is not rejection, it is redirection. Surrender does not mean giving up, it means giving over. Handing over the illusion of control to the wisdom that has guided stars into place and breath into your lungs. That same wisdom courses through you now, aching to be trusted. It does not need your resistance, it needs your yes. And in that yes, you begin to dissolve. Not disappear, but dissolve into the ocean of what you always were. Not a separate wave, but the water itself. Not a fragmented identity, but the whole fluid, free, alive. You are not your story. You are the awareness that has watched it unfold. You are not your wounds. You are the love that continues to beat through them. You are not your limitations. You are the infinite wrapped in skin, pretending to be small until the moment you remember and return. Return now, not to what was, but to what island. This moment, this breath, this quiet invitation to be reborn, not through force, but through release. You cannot move forward holding on. So let this be the breath that loosens your grip. Let this be the day you stop asking for permission. Let this be the lifetime where you choose to be free. And as you begin to loosen your grip, first gently, then with the quiet conviction of a soul remembering its wings, you'll feel something shift that no language can hold. It is not dramatic, not loud, not an explosion, but rather a dissolving, like mist lifting from a morning field, like a weight you carried so long it became part of your posture, now softly falling away. You were not meant to carry what does not serve you, not because you are weak, but because you are sacred. And the sacred is not meant to be buried beneath debris. It is meant to rise. It is meant to be seen, not in a parade of perfection, but in the naked truth of your being. You are enough, not someday, but now. Even as you release, especially as you release, there is a holiness in your surrender, a quiet reverence in your choice to open your hands, your heart, your identity to the unknown, because the unknown is not the enemy, it is the doorway. The doorway to the you that has never been tainted by fear, never been touched by judgment, never been dimmed by the stories others wrote for you. This is the homecoming the mystics spoke of. Not a return to a place, but to a presence, the sacred awareness that remains when everything else is let go. You don't need to know where you're going. The soul is not a GPS, it is a compass. It points inward, it points true, and it whispers not directions, but invitations. Trust me, this way. Let go again. Each time you let go, the path clears a little more. Not because it changes, but because you do. You begin to see not with the eyes of fear, but with the eyes of truth. You begin to recognize that what you were clinging to was never the source of your safety, your worth, your love. Those things are not given to you by the world. They are given through you by the divine essence that pulses in your every cell. Do not ask for more light until you are willing to put down the shade you've been holding. We say we want peace and then defend our suffering. We say we want freedom and then argue for our limitations. But the soul does not live in contradiction. It cannot soar while dragging the anchors of old identities. To truly move forward is to become weightless, not by denying the past, but by transmuting it, by blessing it for what it taught you and freeing it from the need to teach you again. The lesson is not in the reliving, it is in the releasing. There is no growth in replaying the same ache. There is only entrapment. So stop telling the story of your wound. Start telling the story of your rising, not as denial, but as resurrection. Every pain you've known was carving the capacity for more love. Every ending was a comma in a sentence that still longs to be written, but you cannot write it while gripping the pen with the trembling hand of who you used to be. Set the pen down, breathe. Let the divine write now. Let the silence speak. Let the wind rearrange the scattered pieces. The universe is not chaotic, it is intelligent, it is orderly. It knows where to take you when you stop insisting on being the one who knows. Control is not power, it is resistance. True power is surrender, and surrender is not weak. It is the courage to be carried, to be led, to admit that the mind may not know, but the heart always does. And when you drop into that space beyond strategy, beyond expectation, beyond identity, you enter into the flow that has no opposite. You stop swimming against the current of your own soul. You stop asking, how do I get there? And start living the answer, be here. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a practice, a posture, a breath-by-breath unraveling of everything that is not love. And it is in this continual return that you meet your truest self, not the self that reacts, but the self that remembers. And what you remember is so simple, it almost slips through the cracks of thought. You were never broken. You were only carrying too much. And now you are setting it down. And as you set it down, the old ache, the unspoken shame, the roles worn thin by expectation, there is a silence that enters you like a holy wind. Not a silence that isolates, but a silence that sanctifies. A stillness that does not erase you, but reveals you. For beneath the noise, beneath the years of holding and hoping, beneath the fear disguised as effort, there you are. Still, whole, enough. You do not become yourself by effort. You become yourself by removal, by peeling back the layers that were never you to begin with. And when the last mask slips from your face, when the last lie falls from your hands, you meet the soul in her original light, unburdened, sovereign, luminous, without needing a reason. This is what the sages meant when they spoke of awakening. Not a moment of fanfare or ecstasy, but a subtle dissolving of illusion, a realization so quiet the ego cannot grasp it, and yet so profound the heart weeps in recognition. I have always been free. I just forgot to stop holding on. You've been told to work harder, to push more, to keep climbing some invisible ladder. But what if the next step isn't up, but in? What if the path forward is the path inward? What if everything you've been searching for is found not by striving, but by softening? Softening is not surrender to the world, it is surrender to the truth. It is choosing to no longer protect what is false. It is daring to be seen, not as impressive, but as real. And in this realness, you find a strength no effort could ever provide. The strength of alignment, the strength of simply being who you already are. You are not meant to carry pain forever. Pain is a messenger, not a companion. It arrives to awaken, not to anchor. It knocks so you will answer the deeper call, not to react, but to feel. Not to fix, but to free. And when you finally listen, when you bow not in defeat, but in reverence, pain dissolves into wisdom. And wisdom does not weigh you down, it lifts you. So now, with each breath, with each moment of presence, you are unclenching, unlearning, unburdening. You are becoming not something new, but something true, like the sky after the storm, like the soil after the burn, like the heart after the release, open again, ready again, not in haste, but in stillness, not to prove, but to simply allow. And oh, how life begins to meet you differently when you no longer carry the armor. When you walk through the world, not armored in identity, but robed in presence, you begin to draw not from force, but from resonance. Not from performance, but from purpose. Not from who you think you should be, but from who you cannot help but be. You cannot move forward holding on. But what awaits you when you release is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. It is not loss, it is the revealing of more love, more clarity, more depth, more peace. And in that spaciousness, something ancient awakens. Not ambition, not desire, but a remembering, a homecoming. A gentle voice rising from the silence you once feared, saying, this is who you are, you've always been this. So keep going, beloved soul, not in haste, but in devotion. Not to get somewhere, but to more deeply arrive here. And in that arrival, let everything not meant for your becoming fall away like ash. You are not losing, you are being refined, you are not failing. You are being freed. And so you walk not away from the world, but deeper into yourself. And the further you go inward, the less the outer noise can reach you. Not because you've escaped, but because you've remembered. Remember that nothing outside of you has ever held the authority to define your worth, your path, or your peace. This remembering is the quiet revolution of the soul, a revolution not fought with force, but with the stillness of presence. The soft defiance of choosing peace over drama, truth over illusion, surrender over control. It is a revolution that topples no empires, but liberates the one kingdom that matters most, your inner world. As the old identities crumble, as the need for validation dies its slow death, something miraculous begins to take root, a new kind of knowing, not the mind's knowledge, but the soul's clarity. You start to see with new eyes, eyes that no longer seek to analyze, but to witness, eyes that no longer scan for danger, but rest in the beauty of what island. And with this vision, even your past transforms. The stories once etched in pain begin to soften at the edges. The people who hurt you become teachers in disguise. The betrayals become invitations to deeper love. Not the kind of love that clings, but the kind that liberates. Love that no longer says, I need you to be different, but I see you and I set both of us free. This is the alchemy of letting go. The way loss transmutes into gain. The way emptiness becomes a portal to fullness. The way stillness becomes the loudest answer to every question the mind could ever ask. You don't need to understand every piece of the puzzle. You don't need to solve the mystery of why it all unfolded as it did. That is the mind's hunger, not the soul's. The soul is not concerned with explanation, it longs for experience. It wants you to feel this life, not figure it out. And when you allow yourself to feel not just the joy, but the sorrow, the longing, the grief, you realize that none of it is here to harm you. It is here to awaken you, to break the shell of who you thought you were, so that the truth of your being might finally emerge. The pain was never the enemy, the clinging was, the refusal to feel, the demand that life be different. But now, with each breath, you are loosening your grip. You are leaning in. You are saying yes not to the chaos, but to the growth it invites. You are learning the sacred art of trust. Trust in the unfolding. Trust in the intelligence of your own becoming. Trust that the same force that painted the stars and shaped the seas is moving through your life with just as much precision, just as much purpose. And from this trust, a peace arises. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of alignment, the kind that can sit in the storm and still breathe deeply. The kind that can lose and still feel whole. The kind that no longer needs outcomes to feel secure, because the security is no longer external, it is you. You who have walked through fire and still carry light. You who have known abandonment and yet now choose belonging not from others, but from yourself. You who have tried for so long to fix, to hold, to figure it all out, finally surrendering to the knowing that wholeness isn't found in answers, it's found in presence. You are the sanctuary you've been seeking. You are the safe place. You are the open sky that holds the storm without becoming it. You are not the one who breaks, you are the one who bends and blooms and becomes. So let it fall away. Whatever still clings, whatever trembles at the edge of your becoming, let it go with gratitude, with gentleness, with grace. It served its purpose. It brought you here. And here, this breath, this moment, this sacred space of clarity is all you've ever needed. You have walked through the fire of remembering. You have laid down what was never yours. You have stood bare before the altar of truth and found that even in your emptiness, you were overflowing. Not with answers, but with essence. Not with certainty, but with peace. And peace is always enough. The self you tried so hard to protect is no longer in control. The weight you mistook for identity has fallen to the earth like autumn leaves, no longer needed to define your shape. And in the space that remains, something breathtaking stirs, something eternal, something ancient, something deeply familiar. It is the you that has never wavered, the you beneath all becoming, the quiet watcher, the breath, the presence. You are no longer holding on, and in that letting go, you have done something sacred. You have stepped out of the river of reaction and into the still lake of awareness. And from that stillness, your life is no longer dictated, it is danced with grace, with freedom, with the rhythm of the infinite moving through you like music without end. You are not here to impress, you are not here to perfect, you are not even here to find yourself, you are here to reveal what has never been lost. The divine has always known your name, long before the world named you anything else. It is that name, unspoken, wordless, whole, that now begins to sing quietly from your heart like a song remembered in the silence. There will still be days when the past calls you back. There will still be echoes of old fears, old patterns, old identities trying to reclaim their place in your present, but you no longer need to fight them. You only need to witness them with love and let them pass. They are not you. They are only shadows on the wall of a light that never went out. And that light is you. You are the light you thought you were searching for. You are the wisdom you sought from others. You are the presence you begged the world to give you. And now, having released the grip of all that clouded your vision, you see not just with your eyes, but with your soul. See now how far you've come, not in miles, but in presence, not in accolades, but in awareness. You have crossed the inner threshold. You are no longer the seeker, you are the space in which seeking ends. So walk gently, speak kindly, forgive easily, live slowly. Let your presence be your prayer. Let your silence be your offering. Let your being be your gift to this world. You no longer need to hold on. What is real will remain, what is true will stay, and what is meant for you will arrive, not through striving, but through surrender. You are not moving forward in spite of what you've let go, you are moving forward because of it. And in this sacred unfolding, may your every breath remind you You are already whole. You are already home. You are already free. You have remembered the truth. And the truth has always been this: you cannot move forward holding on. And now you have let go. And now you are free. There is a stillness beneath all movement, a silence that cannot be broken by sound. And in this stillness, there is a presence that is not separate from you, but is you beyond form, beyond identity, beyond name. This presence is what I call universal awareness. And when you awaken to it truly and deeply, you discover a truth that humbles the mind and liberates the soul. All things are possible, not through effort or striving, but through alignment with this awareness that is already within you. You see, the world has trained you to believe in limits. It has taught you to measure your worth by achievement, to gauge your power by what you control, to define your reality by what you can touch and see. But these are not truths. These are dreams within dreams, illusions whispered by a mind afraid of its own immensity. You are not here to conform to those limits. You are here to remember that you are infinite. Universal awareness is not something to be attained, it is something to be remembered. It is the deep, abiding presence behind every breath, the silent witness to every thought, the unchanging essence behind every changing moment. It is the consciousness that knows no boundaries, the intelligence that moves galaxies and stirs the human heart with equal grace. When you live from this awareness, you no longer chase outcomes, you allow them. You no longer resist pain, you understand it. You no longer fear the unknown, you merge with it, knowing that what is unknown to the mind is already known by the soul. You begin to see that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a sacred dance to be surrendered to, with each step guided not by fear, but by inner clarity. There is no obstacle in your life that cannot be transcended from this place. Not because you become more powerful in the worldly sense, but because you realize that true power was never about control, it was always about presence. The power to be unmoved in the midst of chaos. The power to forgive what seemed unforgivable. The power to love without condition. This is not weakness, this is not passivity. This is the power of the divine remembering itself through you. All things are possible when you no longer identify with the small self, the one that clings to labels and defends its wounds. That self is not who you are, it is a costume you've worn for a time, a role you've rehearsed so often you began to believe the part, but you are not the part, you are the actor. No, even deeper, you are the stage. The spaciousness in which the play unfolds. You are not the wave, you are the ocean that gives rise to it. And from this oceanic knowing comes great freedom. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from resistance. Not freedom from life, but freedom within it. A tree does not resist the wind, it bends. The sun does not compete with the moon, it shines. You were never meant to struggle your way into peace. You were meant to become still enough to remember that peace is what you are. The mind will argue, but how do I live like this? How do I awaken to this truth? And the answer is not in more doing, but in deeper being. Sit in silence, breathe with presence. Watch your thoughts. As you would clouds passing through the sky, acknowledge them, but do not become them. Behind every thought is a thinker, and behind the thinker is awareness itself. That is where you reside. You are not the fear that visits you. You are not the doubt that clouds your vision. You are not the story that repeats itself in your mind. You are the stillness that sees them all and remains unchanged. And the more you rest in that stillness, the more your life begins to transform, not because you have forced it to, but because you have ceased interfering with the natural flow of your soul's wisdom. This is the miracle. When you let go of trying to fix yourself, you begin to heal. When you stop chasing love, it begins to find you. When you release the need to be understood, you become a space in which others understand themselves. And when you remember your divine nature, the world around you mirrors that remembrance back to you in ways both subtle and spectacular. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your possessions. You are not even your body. You are awareness itself, pure, vast, eternal. And from this awareness, all things emerge. Every answer you seek, every longing you feel, every truth you yearn to touch, it is all within you now, waiting, not to be earned, but to be seen. So breathe. Not to get anywhere, but to be here. Look within, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. Surrender not in defeat, but in devotion to the intelligence that gave you life and sustains it even now. You are not separate from that intelligence. You are that intelligence. You are the presence behind your eyes, the silence between your thoughts, the breath within your breath. And From that place, beloved soul, all things are possible. And so as you linger in the awareness of your own divine stillness, you may notice something quietly arising, not a thought, not an emotion, but a gentle unfolding. It is the essence of knowing, older than words, deeper than reason. It is the sacred realization that life was never meant to be understood with the mind, but felt with the soul. The more you surrender to this realization, the more the boundaries between you and life begin to dissolve. There is no separation, only varying expressions of the same light. You do not need to strive to become one with the universe you already are. It is not something to be achieved, it is something to be lived. And to live it is to walk with grace through every moment, as if each breath is a blessing, each encounter a mirror, each silence a sermon. When you stop rushing to the next experience, you begin to taste the fullness of the one you're in. Presence is not a destination, it is the return to the sacred in the ordinary. There is a kind of seeing that does not come from the eyes, a kind of knowing that does not arise from study. This is the vision of the soul. It perceives beyond appearances. It understands beyond logic. And when you learn to trust this vision, you stop asking life to explain itself. You begin to listen instead. And in that listening, the answers arise not in language, but in alignment. You are no longer led by circumstance, but by clarity. The illusion of time begins to soften here. You begin to sense that all that ever was and all that ever will be is held within this eternal moment. Regret loses its grip. Worry fades into irrelevance. Because there is only now. And in the now, nothing is missing. In the now, you are not lacking because the you that lacks is only an echo of a forgotten belief. The truth of you is whole, is vast, is already home. When you let go of needing to understand the path, you allow the path to unfold with grace. Life has a rhythm, a sacred geometry that we cannot manipulate but can merge with. Like a river carrying you forward, not by force but by surrender. The current knows the way. Your only task is to release the rocks of resistance, the anchors of judgment, the driftwood of comparison, and let yourself be carried by the knowing that lives deeper than your fear. You were not born to struggle upstream against your own nature. You were born to flow, to trust, to be danced by the rhythm of a cosmos that has never made a mistake. Even what you call detours are part of the design. Even the delays, the doubts, the falls, all of it belongs. Nothing is wasted in the eyes of the infinite. Even your ache is sacred because it is the doorway to compassion. Even your confusion is holy because it humbles the mind and opens the heart. To awaken to universal awareness is to drop the illusion that you are doing life. You begin to see that life is doing you, living you, breathing you, moving through you as a unique expression of Source. You are not the doer, but the done. Not the painter, but the canvas. Not the fire, but the light dancing upon the flame. And in that realization, you are free not because your circumstances have changed, but because your identity has dissolved. When identity dissolves, love remains. Not love as an emotion, but love as a state of being, a field, a frequency, a truth that does not rise and fall with conditions. This is not love that demands, it is love that allows. It is not love that seeks, it is love that sees. And to live in this love is to bless the world, not with your effort, but with your presence. Not with your perfection, but with your authenticity. There is no need to add anything to yourself. Nothing needs to be improved, polished, or proved. The oak does not envy the rose. The sun does not hurry to become the moon. You are not here to become a better version of yourself. You are here to become more fully what you already are, an unrepeatable expression of divine consciousness. And so I invite you in this very moment to soften, not to give up, but to give in to the wisdom that already lives within your being, to the truth that does not shout, but whispers in stillness. You will not find it in the noise of striving, but in the silence of surrender. And as you soften, something ancient begins to stir. Not something new arriving, but something timeless remembered. It is the gentle return to a home that was never gone, only veiled. This is not the awakening of a new self, it is the unveiling of the self that was always there beneath the noise, the self that does not grasp, does not chase, does not fear, because it knows. It knows that life is not a battleground but a garden, not a test but a teaching, and you are both the student and the sacred lesson being lived. There is nothing to escape when you awaken to your own awareness, because in that awareness, even your pain becomes holy. Even your confusion becomes a compass. The moments you once ran from become the very soil in which your soul takes root. When you stop labeling your experiences as good or bad, when you cease demanding that life fit your plan, you begin to see the deeper intelligence that underlies all things. You begin to trust, not blindly, but wholly. Trust is not passive. It is the highest form of participation. It is standing inside the fire of uncertainty and knowing that you are held. It is moving without guarantees, not because you are reckless, but because you are connected to something greater than outcomes. You are no longer living from fear of what may go wrong, but from reverence for what is eternally right. You were not sent here to accumulate, to compete, to dominate, or even to succeed by the world's definition. You were sent here to remember, to embody, to radiate. The true measure of a life well lived is not what you have gathered, but what you have become in the becoming. And when you become rooted in awareness, life itself becomes your sanctuary. The world may tell you to move faster, to work harder, to fix yourself into someone more acceptable, but the soul speaks in the opposite direction. The soul says, slow down, feel more, strip away the layers, rest in your being. The soul says you are not broken, you are blooming. You are not late, you are exactly on time. You are not lost, you are being guided from within by something far more intelligent than the mind. This is why so many feel empty after chasing what the world promised would bring fulfillment, because you cannot fill an eternal space with temporary things. No possession, no title, no recognition can take the place of presence. Presence is the soul's currency. It is what nourishes your being from the inside out. And it is found not in more, but in enough, not in striving, but in stillness. When you awaken to universal awareness, you stop living for validation and start living as a vessel for peace, a vessel for truth, a vessel for the light that does not flicker in storms. And you begin to notice that the things you once clung to begin to fall away, not because you forced them out, but because they no longer match the frequency of your being. What once felt essential begins to feel irrelevant. What once felt urgent begins to feel unnecessary. And in their place arises something quiet, something steady, something sacred. You begin to feel the pulse of divinity in ordinary moments, in the breeze that brushes your cheek, in the way the morning sun rests on the kitchen floor, in the tears that rise for no reason at all, except that your heart has been touched by something wordless. You are no longer looking for signs. You are living as the sign. And then something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to see the divine not only in yourself, but in everyone and everything. The one who annoyed you becomes your teacher. The one who hurt you becomes your mirror. The one who loved you becomes a reminder of the love that lives within you always. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wrong. It is all part of the holy unfolding. You are not here to conquer life. You are here to be in communion with it, to enter into a sacred conversation with existence itself, where every moment speaks, every silence sings, and every heartbeat becomes a prayer. You were not born to master life. You were born to remember that life, and you are not two separate things. You are life. You are awareness expressing itself in form. And so, beloved soul, breathe, be, trust the process, not because it is easy, but because it is divine. Know that as you live from this space of universal awareness, you are not missing out. You are merging with the infinite. You are not falling behind. You are falling into grace. And as grace gathers around your being like morning mist rising over quiet fields, you begin to feel the beauty in simply existing, not accomplishing, not striving, just existing. The leaves do not apologize for falling. The moon does not try to outshine the Sunday. They fulfill their purpose by simply being true to what they are, and so do you. You begin to notice how the mind, conditioned by the past and projected into the future, is forever busy trying to become. It says, if only I had that, if only I were more like this, then I would be complete. But universal awareness speaks with a different voice. It says, there is nothing to add, there is nothing to reach. All that you seek is already present in the stillness of your being. This is why great spiritual masters spoke in riddles and paradoxes, because the truth they carried could not be reduced to logic. It had to be felt. It had to be lived. Lao Tzu said, he who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know. And yet in this silence, everything becomes clear. When you sit with yourself long enough to become familiar with your own essence, clarity is no longer something you search for. It becomes the atmosphere you breathe. And the more you rest in that atmosphere, the more you realize that peace was never something to be protected, but something to be allowed. You were never meant to guard your heart like a fortress. You were meant to let it bloom like a field of wildflowers, open and unafraid. Pain may visit, yes. Disappointment may pass through. But they cannot stay, not when you are living from the place that welcomes all things and clings to none. From this presence, you begin to move differently. You begin to listen with your whole being, not just your ears. You begin to speak from the soul, not from the script. You are no longer interested in being right, you are interested in being real. You begin to notice that arguments lose their appeal because the need to defend is born of fear, and fear no longer feels like home. You also begin to realize that healing is not a destination. It is a way of walking, a way of being with yourself gently, moment by moment, not demanding progress, not measuring worth, but honoring the sacred rhythm of your own becoming. In universal awareness, healing is not something you do. It is something that happens naturally when you stop interfering, when you stop trying to force the petals open and simply let them unfold. And what unfolds is not always easy. Sometimes it is grief rising to be held. Sometimes it is loneliness revealing your forgotten connection. Sometimes it is the truth breaking through the walls you built to protect yourself. But no matter what comes, it comes not to punish you, but to purify you, to bring you back to what is real, what is eternal, what cannot be shaken. There is a light in you that does not flicker, a presence in you that does not fade, a truth in you that does not tremble no matter how loud the world becomes. And when you live from that space, not visit, but live, then everything around you begins to shift. Not because you are fixing the world, but because you are no longer at war within yourself. And this inner peace becomes a ripple, a frequency, a quiet revolution that touches others not through effort, but through energy. You do not have to convince them. You do not have to teach them. You simply have to be. Fully, freely, authentically, your presence becomes the teaching. Your stillness becomes the transmission. Your life becomes a silent prayer that says to the world, it is safe to come home. Home is not a place, it is a state of consciousness. It is a space where you no longer seek to be more because you remember you are already whole. It is where you stop trying to fit in and start allowing yourself to unfold. It is where the fear of being misunderstood no longer silences your truth. And in that space, in that sacred returning, you finally exhale. And in that long-awaited exhale, gentle, sacred, complete, you feel the soul returning to the throne it never left, not to rule, but to rest, not to dominate, but to dwell. It sits quietly in the heart's inner sanctuary, radiating the calm certainty of something that has never been confused. And in its silence, it teaches without words. You were never meant to strive your way into peace. You were only meant to stop striving long enough to remember that peace has always been your nature. As this remembrance deepens, the pace of life begins to slow, not because the world has changed, but because your relationship with it has. You stop racing time, you stop chasing outcomes. You stop living as if joy were a prize hidden at the end of effort. You realize instead that joy is not something you earn, it is something you allow when you drop the heavy armor of becoming and simply arrive. Arrival is not a place, it is a presence. It is the moment when you no longer need the world to understand you, because you have understood yourself. It is the moment when you stop performing and start expressing, when you stop grasping and start receiving, when you no longer ask life, what can I get, but instead whisper, how can I serve? And in that whisper, the universe leans in because it recognizes one of its own. You are no longer the seeker, you are the seer. No longer the question, you are the space in which all questions dissolve. And from that space, life begins to unfold, not as a burden, but as a sacred offering. A dance choreographed by the same force that arranges the stars and stirs the tides. There is a profound humility that arises here, not the kind born of shame, but of awe. You begin to bow, not out of fear, but out of reverence, to the tree, to the stranger, to your own breath. You see God in everything, not as a figurehead, but as a frequency, not as a doctrine, but as a presence that permeates all things, unconfined, undefended, and unimaginably vast. You stop needing to be right, you stop needing to be seen, you stop needing to be more, because you no longer derive your identity from the outside world. You have touched the infinite within. And once you've touched that space, you can never truly go back to sleep. You may forget again, yes. But the forgetting is never final. The thread has been tied. The call has been heard. And even when you wander, it echoes through every moment of disconnection, whispering gently, come back, come home. Coming home is not about returning to something external. It is about sinking inward. It is about learning to sit still with the truth of your own being until even the loneliness becomes a kind of company, until even the emptiness begins to sing. Because in that sacred stillness, the false falls away. And what remains is so honest, so vast, so beautifully unadorned that it breaks you open, not into pieces, but into peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of clarity. The knowing that you are not the storm, you are the sky. That you are not the wound, you are the witness. That you are not the momentary darkness, you are the eternal light through which even the darkness becomes visible. And from this light you begin to live, not perform, not survive, but truly live. Not because you have found the answers, but because you have let go of the need for them. You are no longer the prisoner of your past, nor the hostage of your future. You are the eternal now, the sacred awareness in which all time dissolves into presence. Here, life becomes simple again. Not easy, perhaps, but simple. You eat when you're hungry. You rest when you're tired. You speak when the soul rises. You act not from obligation, but from alignment. And in this sacred simplicity, you rediscover something the world had taught you to forget, that just being is enough, that your very presence aligned with truth is your greatest offering. And as the presence deepens and your soul settles into its natural rhythm, you begin to see life not as a series of events to manage, but as waves of meaning to experience. There is a quiet revelation in this way of seeing a holy recognition that every moment is infused with intention, every encounter is laced with divine choreography. Even the mundane becomes magnificent when viewed through the lens of awareness. Washing the dishes, folding clothes, walking across a room, these too become prayers when done in presence. You begin to see that you were never meant to live life from the neck up, analyzing, calculating, controlling. You were meant to live from the whole of your being, from the heart that beats before you think, from the breath that arrives without command, from the silence that holds all answers without ever needing to speak. You are not a machine. You are not a role. You are not an idea. You are a living, breathing extension of universal intelligence made visible in form. And so the healing continues not because you're fixing yourself, but because the parts of you that once lived in exile are finally being welcomed home. Shame loses its grip when met with truth. Fear unravels when held in stillness. The inner critic, once so loud, becomes quiet when it realizes it no longer needs to protect you from your own worthiness. You are safe now not because the world has guaranteed it, but because you have stopped abandoning yourself. You no longer betray your peace to please the noise. You no longer override your inner knowing for outer validation. You have become your own sanctuary, your own refuge, your own unwavering home. From here, relationships transform. You stop needing people to complete you. You start loving them as reflections of the love you found within. You release the grip of possession and open the hand of presence. You begin to listen, not to respond, but to receive. You no longer speak to be heard, but to connect. And every connection becomes sacred when it is rooted in truth. Even your pain, now held in awareness, becomes a teacher instead of a tormentor. You look back on your past, not with regret, but with reverence. Every wound led you closer to this remembrance. Every fall was a part of your rising. Nothing was wasted. The tears you shed watered the ground for your awakening. The loneliness you feared became the doorway to communion with all that island. And as this communion deepens, you begin to feel the presence of the eternal in all things. Not just in meditation, but in the sound of children laughing, in the weight of dusk settling over the hills, in the eyes of a stranger who smiles without a word. Everything begins to hum with the quiet language of the sacred, not in spectacle, but in subtlety, not in thunder, but in breath. You do not need more to be more. You do not need to reach further to be full. You do not need to ascend into some spiritual ideal to be worthy of your own love. Worthiness was never in question. You were loved before you learned how to be lovable. You were chosen before you knew there was a path to walk. You were whole before the world handed you its conditions. And now you remember. The remembering does not require effort. It requires surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of illusion. Let go of who you thought you needed to be. Let go of the image you were taught to project. Let go of the resistance to your own beauty. You are not here to fit in. You are here to shine so fully that others remember they are light too. And from that light, life begins to move with you, not against you, not around you, but with you, as if every step you take is matched by a divine response, as if the wind knows your name, as if the stars lean in when you speak, because they do, because you are not separate from any of it. And now, as the light of this journey gathers like the final warmth of a setting sun, you stand not at the end, but at a beginning, ancient, eternal, and entirely your own. Not the kind of beginning the world praises with banners and milestones, but the sacred kind, the quiet return to what never left. The soul does not count time in years, but in awakenings. And you, beloved soul, have remembered. You have remembered that your worth is not contingent, your beauty is not borrowed, your truth is not on trial. You have remembered that presence is power, that love is not something you must seek, but something you are. You have remembered that the awareness within you is not limited by your name, your past, or your form. It is vast, it is timeless, it is holy. You do not need to be anything more than you are to be complete. That lie has exhausted itself in your being. You no longer chase the reflection in the water you drink deeply from the stillness. You no longer barter your peace for applause. You have found a deeper music, a quieter song, one that plays not on stages but in the center of your chest, in your breath, in your being. You see now that there was never a separation, only a forgetting. And in this sacred remembering, everything has changed even though nothing needed to. You are not ascending into something new. You are dissolving into what has always been. You are not rising above life. You are sinking fully into it. The leaves, the laughter, the silence between words, they have all become sacred again. And so you walk not with urgency but with reverence. Each step a prayer, each moment an offering. You no longer need to convince life to bless you because you realize life is made of blessing. Every breath is an answer. Every stillness is a sanctuary. Every ache is a doorway to deeper love. You are no longer a seeker, you are a seer. You are no longer waiting, you are allowing. You are no longer lost, you are home. You've tasted the truth that cannot be unlearned, the presence that cannot be earned, the light that cannot be extinguished. And now you know. All things are not only possible, they are already unfolding perfectly through the intelligence that breathes through you, walks with you, and never left you not for a single heartbeat. This is not the end. This is the awakening. And in this awakening, you are not becoming anything. You are remembering everything. So walk now with open hands. Speak now with a quiet heart. Rest now in the holy center of your own being. And remember, always, all things are possible with universal awareness. And that awareness is you.